Welcome to Smashing PBs, brought to you by 40 Thieves Nut Butters, New Zealand's best peanut butter for fueling everyday and epic adventures. I'm your host, Shyr Godfrey. Join me for inspiring conversations with Kiwis who push boundaries, do things differently, and smash their personal bests. In this episode, I'm talking to Shaun Kelly. Shaun's a father of 5, the first in his family to get a degree, and now he's CEO of Smartfoods, with iconic Kiwi brands like Tom and Luke and Vogels. 6 years ago, he started running, and he hasn't missed a single day since. Welcome, Shaun. I'm so glad that you responded to my email and agreed to come on the podcast.
Yeah, great to be here.
Awesome. How's your day been? You cleared it for me.
It's cleared.
Fantastic.
It's nice to be here. It's a nice change.
Fantastic. You are the CEO of Smartfoods. It's a really well-loved brand, incredible food. We definitely have a range of both Tom and Luke and Vogels in the pantry at all times. At the same time, you are a very passionate runner. And I think most interesting about that is that you do it every day. So I guess I want to know, how do you find the time?
Yeah, it's a great question. You know, how do you find the time? I hear people often sort of say, like, I can't fit it in. I don't have enough time. My answer is get up earlier.
Nice.
And I say that like with personal meaning, because I used to hate getting up earlier.
You're like me. I have this dream to get up at 5 o'clock, and I can't do it.
I do all my running. Well, predominantly I do all my running in the morning now. I didn't used to.
How are you doing that in winter? Like, it is cold. It is dark out there right now.
Because it just becomes a habit after a while. So, you know, why I started running in the morning was once I started running every day, after a couple of years, I got a bit more serious and I was running at night and I was getting home really late. My wife sort of took me aside and said, "Hey, look, it's really great that you're doing this, but it'd be really nice to see you. It'd be nice to have some help around the house." And it was winter. I think it must have been about 3 or 4 years ago, winter. And I was like, okay, and I knew that it takes about 3 weeks to form a habit. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to get up I'm just going to force myself to get up in the morning and go for a run in winter, because if I can form the habit, then summer's going to be a piece of cake. I've transitioned from hating running in the morning to actually I get a bit uptight if I haven't had my morning run. Yeah. Like, I kind of need it. So it just becomes that habit.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. I find it incredible because I also had a similar, it's never to the extreme of my guests, I'm going to understand this, I'm the micro level, but I also, I normally run in the afternoons, but in summer I had the opposite problem. It was too hot. And so I figured I have to get up early. Yeah. My early is probably not your early. It was like 6 o'clock, which is probably normal time for most people.
I mean, 5:30. 5:30 every morning. My alarm's set 5:30. Yeah. And look, to be honest, it doesn't matter which day of the week.
Yeah, it's awesome. For me, I said to myself, it doesn't matter the distance and it doesn't matter the pace, because the habit that I'm trying to form is the morning. And I actually found by the end of summer, it was incredible. I started just naturally getting up for those runs, and you're exactly right. Like, if you put it in, if you just make the time and you form the habit, then suddenly it changes your perception.
And the thing about like getting up earlier, I say that because it's to break that excuse. I can't do it. And then you go, yeah, but if you got up early, you could. And then so what does that mean? Well, you have to go to bed earlier. And to be honest, that's probably a healthier thing. And I never used to do that. It's kind of just about that habit of where you've got your body, your brain in that cadence of I'm feeling good and this is how I live it.
What happens though on a day where you've got, I don't know, a social event, a dinner out, a 40th, a 50th, something exciting that's happening?
Look, in the 6 years, in the 6 years that I've been running every day, there's been, you know, a heap of things. Yes. Right? And like you just sort of said, oh, you've got a meeting. You know, hey, I had to attend my father's funeral, you know? Yeah. And it's just like these things. And I remember thinking, you know, and I was like, of course it is. Of course I should go for a run. Yeah. Of course. How could that ever be bad? How could that be the wrong thing?
That is so cool.
And so, on those days, it'd be one where you'd go, okay, how early do I need to get up to do this? How am I going to do this so it doesn't inconvenience anybody else? Yeah. Now, there's plenty of runs where it will tend to be earlier, but, you know, if you've got flights and things like that, you schedule it in,
Okay.
and you just go where. Like if I'm travelling away, especially if I'm travelling overseas, I will sometimes I will save my run up until I get to the location, because I'm like, hey, what a great way to be a tourist. I'm going to go for a run. So you make it fit.
Yeah.
And honestly,
It's your non-negotiable.
Yeah. Well, I've actually never had a day where I would logically conclude, actually, I shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Like there's not more pros to the cons.
Amazing. What do you get from running?
I mean, it's phenomenal. Like, I had a long period of time where I was pretty physically inactive, right, in my life, and like from a career point of view, really driven and so forth, and I wasn't running. And then I took up running. We might talk a little bit as to why later on, but I took up running every day, and then I just felt the benefits of it straight away. I don't know if people talk about the release of the endorphins and so forth, and I think that's absolutely got a part to play as to why I love running in the morning, because I just get that positive, that really positive feeling, and it's just again it becomes all that kind of habit. But there's just my health it went from, I remember it was during, it was COVID, right? I hadn't been to the doctor for ages. I went back to the doctor. The doctor did all their normal tests. They sort of said, look, your heart rate's really low. Is there something I need to know? And I looked at them and sort of said, yeah, I'm an athlete now.
That's so cool.
And it was just like, it was a bit tongue-in-cheek, but it was kind of true.
Yes.
And there's just like my blood pressure is lower. My cholesterol's, has fixed. I think I'm currently like 17 kg lighter than my peak weight. So there's just so many benefits, but then the mental side of it, the confidence that comes with that. Yeah. I don't know if I'd necessarily need to run every day to still feel that, because there's that sense of belief that it creates.
Yes.
I don't have any intention to find out if I need to, because I don't find, like, Tuesday was really terrible weather, right?
Oh, horrible.
And I kind of had a little bit of a laugh to myself, because in my running community, the amount of people who did not run on Tuesday was phenomenal. It was very impressive.
Yes.
I got up in that morning. It wasn't, do I go for a run? It was, what am I going to wear? That was it.
Yeah, so it's not, there's no bad weather, there's only bad clothing choices.
Yeah, exactly.
I always focus on the mental resilience of running. For me, that's something that has stood out. But there is obviously very clearly the physical part of it as well. You mentioned all the different health benefits that it has. Was that like quite extraordinary to you to just see that happening? Like, did it take, was it weeks, was it months? Like, when did you sort of understand that you were physically stronger and physically healthier?
The physical side really comes down to, it's just all those things as to how far can I run without walking, like when you start.
Yes.
So when I started running every day, a run for me was 3K.
Yeah.
I remember when I ran 5K for my first time, it was probably like my day 5 or something.
Wow.
I was exhausted after that. I couldn't run anything more than 3 days up.
Well, what was going through your head? What happened? How did you get from 3 to 5 Ks
because it was
in the space?
It was that physical stuff. It was the desire to see it.
Okay.
And so at that time, it wasn't so much around pace, it was around distance. And 5K doesn't sound like very much, but it is when you start out.
Yeah.
If you're going from nothing to something, that's heaps. And so, but over time, what you find is that things just become easier. The transformation is fairly quick from a physical point of view. I mean, I don't know, 3-4 weeks, you definitely going to have noticed that you've either run at a faster pace, or you've run at a longer distance without needing to walk, or a longer distance without feeling utterly like you're about to die, without a question.
Talk to me about Strava. Was Strava a part of your running journey from day one, or did you jump into it later?
It was part of my running journey from day one, or when I started at 6 years. I really like Strava. Not everybody does.
Yeah.
I like it for two reasons. I like the personal record that it keeps. Mm-hmm. So it's just easy. You just I've got this record of what I did, and I will use it from time to time, particularly if I'm in a training block now, it's feeling really hard. And then I'll look back to where that same part of that training block maybe 2 years ago for another marathon, and I will see that it was really hard. Yeah. And I'll go, it's okay that it feels really hard now, because that's what it normally feels like at this point in time. So I actually use it that. But I'm what I call myself as a cheerleader.
Okay.
Right? So, if you want to for your run, you'll probably get one from me.
I think you do like all my runs, and I don't do too many.
No,
So.
and my wife will actually drives it mad because I'm on my phone like before I go to bed type thing because I'll be clicking through all my likes type stuff. Like I'm paying attention. If anyone writes anything, I read it and stuff like that. I'll tell you why. When I first started running in Strava, I was just like what probably most people are. I was really self-conscious.
Yes.
Like I remember near my house, there's a hill and I would sprint down it in the last sort of 500 metres because I wanted the speed to read faster than 6-minute Ks.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want anyone to see that I had to run slower than 6-minute Ks. Now, I will run just as to how I feel, and if I'm running over 6-minute Ks, I don't care. I actually view it now as I'm setting an example for other people not to worry about it. But at that time, I was really, really conscious. But what happened is, as you accumulated people, there would be like, I'm not going to say people's names, but there was a guy who lives in my local neighbourhood, and he's a phenomenal athlete. And we would run, and then we started following each other on Strava, and he, sort of nodded in the street, started following each other on Strava, and then I did this run, I can't remember what it was, and he liked my run, and I was like, wow.
That athlete.
How cool. That guy just liked my run. I remember ringing my son and said, hey, check it out. So-and-so liked my run. How cool is that, right? It's really validating.
It is validating.
And so, I'm kind of like if you do something so I'll like your run, but if you do something exceptional, I'll probably comment. And because I don't know if that's going to have the same effect.
Yes.
But if it has that effect on one or two people, as far as I'm concerned, it's worth my time.
Yeah.
Because it's such a positive feeling, And I mean, that's the thing I love about the running community too, is we're all really supportive. And if you follow people on Strava, you invest in their journey. When someone hits that PB and they've been striving for it for months, and they hit it, when you know that journey that they've done it, it's awesome, right? It's as great as your own achievement. That's how I feel. I look at it. I feel sorry for my wife because it's just running story after running story, and then I might spend one afternoon and I'll be talking about someone else's run about how amazing it was and how they'd done this and that, and I kind of laugh at myself, going, that poor woman she has to listen to my story, she has to listen to me reliving someone else's story.
That's so good. But you mentioned about how you would run a little bit faster on the downhill so you could bring your average down. Yeah, I've done that. I've even gone as far as being like, I don't know if I want to publish this run because it was too slow. Yeah. And, then you start to, what actually ends up happening, I realized for me, is then you don't want to run because you're like, I'm not feeling really fast today. So I don't want to go because I'm going to be really slow. And it took a long time for me to realize that actually just getting out there and doing a run is more important than always worrying about your time. Like, you can worry about your time if you're doing a race or if you're doing like a sprint session. But if you were always trying to go your fastest, then you take the love out of the running. Yeah,
but like I kind of like look at it as this. If people like you do a half marathon, right, and someone they run 512th place, 2 hours 18, and afterwards they're like, it just sucks, there was 530 people in the race. I only beat 18. And, my viewers, it was a public event.
Yes.
You beat everybody else in the world.
That is so good.
Right?
That is so
good. And, they all had the opportunity to be here. And, I mean, people will say, you're beating everyone on the couch.
Yeah.
Right? And you are.
Yeah.
And the thing, but it's hard. I understand that because I just said, even I'm really comfortable with who I am and where I'm at in life, right? But I was self-conscious about it. Yeah. It wasn't until after a while that I kind of realized it was more actually about learning about running and going, no, actually, I'm kind of not supposed to be trying to run as fast as I can all the time. That it was just like, no, I'm going to let people see that. But when people start out, it's pretty natural.
Yes.
But you got to resist it. And then if you accumulate up, people will admire it. And really, most people actually don't care how fast you run.
And they can't remember either.
No.
And they also, there's so many things that affect you on the day. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The fact that what people will remember is that you were there and the energy that you brought.
Exactly. I know how hard. I know a lot of people in my running community. I know how hard they work.
Yes.
If you asked me what their PB was, it's highly improbable that I've got to tell you.
Yeah. Imagine your poor wife, as you say.
Yeah.
If you listed out everybody's PBs as well for every length as well. 5K this, 10K. Yeah. I understand you've been running every day for 6 years.
Yeah.
What did your sporting look like before that.
Yeah.
Did you play sport at school?
I was really sporty at school.
Okay.
I mean, there were two subjects I was good at school: sport and maths.
Okay, and that's what you do now.
And yeah, and that was kind of it. But then I left. When I left school, I kept playing football. I kind of like say, then I found beer and woman, and everything kind of went pear-shaped after that. I stopped being physically active. I love food, so I was clocking over 100 kg. How I got into run every day was I knew I was a walking heart attack waiting to happen. So I was pretty successful in business, but I was overweight, blood pressure, cholesterol, all this sort of thing, and I kind of actually thought it's just a matter of time. Wow. Really, that I will.
Were you scared of that thought, or had you sort of accepted it as your reality, as your fate?
I kind of didn't really know what to do about it. It was just life.
Yeah.
It's what I was.
Yes.
And then I thought, I've had various kind of moments where I've kind of thought into it's challenged my thinking, but I arrived at this sort of decision that basically, I've got 5 kids, and it was like, okay, what I'm going to do is every time one of my kids asks me to do something that's physically in my interest to do it, I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to say no. So what I was visualizing is I'm sitting on the couch with a beer in hand watching something.
Yep.
And one of my kids comes up and says, Dad, do you want to go kick a ball?
Yes.
And it was like, in that moment, I'm going to say yes every
Fantastic.
single time. I'm going to put the beer down, turn the TV off, and I'm going to go kick a ball. So I started doing that. It was basically, okay, I'm going to be physically active. I'm going to be a good dad, right? And then my oldest boy, Seamus, I think he sort of twigged to this. Right? And then he said to me one day, he said, Dad, you want to go for a run? And I was like, no, I do not want to go for a run. I was like, yes, I want to go for a run. So we went for a run.
Extraordinary.
And then a couple of days later, he said, Dad, you want to go for another run? I did not want to go for a run. Yes, I want to go for a run. We went for a few runs. And then he told me about, he had actually taken up running. And he said, Dad, I know there's these guys who do run every day. I think you should give it a go.
Wow.
That's how I got into run every day.
So you told yourself. I'm just
living the promise. I'm just living my promise to myself.
Far out.
Which is I just said, okay.
Yeah.
And I've just kept running every day.
That is not what I expected. I love it.
All the marathon running in that. It's because it's somewhere in there. He basically, I don't want to run a half marathon. Right? It's too much.
Yes.
Because I was still pretty overweight when I first started, and I was sore.
Yeah.
As I got healthier, all of those problems went away.
Fantastic.
And he sort of said, you should run a half marathon. And I ran a half marathon. I ran it in a pretty decent time. And I think it was pretty much straight after.
Do you want to share your time?
I think I was really over the moon. I think I ran at that time, I ran 1:34.
Your first half marathon?
I had run half marathons before.
Like when you were younger?
When I was overweight, I was trying not to be beaten by the elderly lady wearing a pink tutu running 2 hours 10.
Those guys, and sometimes those women are very fast.
Oh, she kicked my ass.
Yeah.
It's like, as I'm retiring,
Yeah.
and all I was doing was hoping not to have a heart attack in front of my kids, because I was still trying to show them that Dad had it, but I didn't. I was dying out there. No, I did actually run a half marathon. My one and only, very first half marathon, I ran when I was 15. I ran at 1:31. Okay. And I was like, wow, that's really good. One day I'm just going to run a sub 3 hour marathon. It'd be great. And that was a dream gone. It was lost to me. But then Seamus said, after the half marathon, he said, Dad, I think you should run a marathon. And to be honest, up until then, I hadn't even contemplated it. It just seemed like a step too far. But anyway, that led on to sort of marathon running. Your
inner child was kind of rooting for you and waiting for you to make some changes.
It was actually really cool, right? To I was getting close to 50 at that time, and it was to go and say I'm almost undoing 30 years worth of damage.
Yeah.
To go and say, and it was a childhood dream. I'd actually thought about it.
Wow.
Because it was a lesson I had learned the horrible way. Having regrets in life, not doing things.
Yes.
I never did it because I took it for granted that just one day I will just naturally do it.
Yes.
And, I was 15 and I was doing that. It's like, it would be a piece of cake one day. And then I never did it. I never ran another half marathon, never ran a marathon. I ran my first marathon in 2021. So it was only 4 years ago.
Amazing. You've come so far in such a, I want to say in a short period of time, but I'm sort of a believer of fate, and I kind of feel like you were meant to go through years of as you say, not moving that much to be able to get to this extreme? Like maybe if you the whole time, maybe if you trained, you would never be so passionate and so driven. No.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right. There's no question there is passion is derived by the fact that I'm doing something that I had probably thought that I couldn't, or I would never do, and I'm achieving things that I dreamed of as a young person.
Yes.
I'm now achieving as someone who's past my physical prime, shall we say? And it's just like, that's how cool is that? Like I like my achievements. Only because I believe that we should pursue being the best versions of us. Yeah. Right. And
I love that. Your own personal best.
Yeah. And so when I'm achieving these things, it's like, I'm a better me.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
And that should be a constant. And whatever you're doing, that should be a constant thing that you're looking to do. And when you can have these constant little moments of where you go, I've just done that. It's pretty neat.
Smashing PBs is brought to you by 40 Thieves, award-winning producers of New Zealand's tastiest peanut butter, almond butter and superfood butters. Every spoonful is packed with protein, healthy fats and all the goodness you need for fueling everyday and epic adventures. Grab your next jar at your local Woolworths, New World, Pack and Save and the Warehouse supermarkets and start smashing your personal bests.
Obviously, you're saying you were quite successful in business for many years before you started your running streak. Can you talk me through a little bit about that? Like when you finished school, what you studied, how you got into your current career?
This is a true story.
Okay.
Primary school.
Yes.
Okay. Homework assignment. Come to school the next day, say what you want to be when you grow up. That classic thing. I went home. I had a really humble upbringing. My mum retired at the factory she worked in for 34 years as a factory hand. My dad retired from the fertiliser works as an engineer's mate. It was real simple upbringing.
Yeah.
They didn't have two pennies to rub together, but we never went without. And I went home and I sort of said, and so I knew that having money would be a really good idea.
Yes.
Right? So I went home and I said to my mum, what people earn a lot of money? She said, doctors, lawyers and accountants. And I knew I didn't want to be a doctor because they dealt with people that were bleeding and dying. And I was like, that seemed awful, right? So I was like, I don't want to do this. What do lawyers do? You don't want to be one of those. Nobody likes them. Within about 10 years later, I figured out what one was. And I was like, okay, my mum said that. What do accountants do? They count. Okay, I can count.
Yes.
Because I knew I was okay at maths at that stage. So I literally went to school and everybody else wants to be a fireman and a nurse and whatever. And I stood up and said, I want to be an accountant. And the teacher said, why? And I said, because I earn a lot of money. and then if I'm giving the short version, I sort of say I haven't had a better idea since. But as I sort of carried on through life,
yes.
I learnt that it was a transferable skill.
Yes.
And so what I also wanted to do is I wanted to do the thing that I was passionate about. But like most people, I didn't know what that was.
Yes.
I hadn't found that thing that I was passionate about. And so I figured, well, a transferable skill is a good holding place until you find the thing you're passionate about. And so I got into, I kind of found my way into FMCG. And then I ended up, the breakthrough moment really for me was Hubbard Foods. And then I realised that I actually really love making stuff.
Yes.
That is validated by people because they buy it.
Yes.
And a lot of people buy it. And millions of dollars is demonstrated in that you're doing this right. And that's kind of how I view it.
Exciting for the person passionate about counting.
Yeah. And so anyway, I was CFO there, and then I became the CEO of there, which I realised was really kind of what I wanted. I actually didn't love being an accountant. I was a pretty good accountant, and probably what made me as a good accountant, I wasn't a normal accountant.
I see.
I did have some really good teachers.
You're quite visionary.
I understood the connectivity between numbers and people.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is really good accountants are people who can actually help other business leaders, their peers, make the right decisions because they may be not as financially astute. And, another really good lesson that I can't remember where I learned it, but it was like, imagine what you could achieve in life if you didn't worry about who got the credit. Now, I think that's a really good thing for accountants to understand. And the reason is that accountants by themselves generally are not seen as friendly or, great people, right? I know I'm being very stereotypical, but an accountant next to a sales and marketing manager, an accountant next to an ops manager, with both of them agreeing and nodding, that's very powerful.
Yes.
Right, and so the key was to actually empower other people. And so that's how I kind of built my career as an accountant, and then that obviously led to being a CEO. What
was that transition like? Do you feel like you were already you had taken on some of the CEO role as CFO? Were you already doing parts of it, or how did that transition happen?
Without a question, I was really lucky. The CEO at the time, he obviously foresaw a transition that I didn't foresee. He sent me to Wharton in the US, and I got to do a sort of about 3 weeks up there doing an executive program. And I got to be honest, I mean, I was already feeling quite confident, but when I came back from that, if you had said to me, Sean, build a rocket ship and go to the moon, I would have backed myself to figuring out how to do it. I came back from that really feeling quite empowered, quite confident, and I was just I couldn't wait. I didn't realise then, the CEO he'd obviously planned this all out. The penny dropped, because about 2 months after he announced his resignation, he basically took me into a room and sort of said, "Look, I'm going to recommend that they put you into the role." That's how it played out. So.
What happened in the US? What was it that gave you so much confidence that had set you up?
I learned a lot. Like I'll give you two.
Is it the Americans? Are they a different league ahead of us?
No,
or was
the course
it
I was actually
home?
doing, there was about 45 people on it, and I think there were about 30 different nations represented.
Wow.
So the two greatest lessons that I learned, one was the United Nations did a whole lot of research, right, around what are the greatest barriers between two different cultures working together.
Interesting.
And there's two massive barriers. And the first one's really obvious. It's language. You don't speak the same language, but you can't communicate. And the second, which stood way above everything else, which surprised me, was cadence. It was pace. So when we use terms like, we're in island time, that could be meant as like a derogatory term, like we're going too slow. Or if you're in the islands, it's a compliment.
Yes.
It's a wonderful. I'm picking up. It's a real thing. Yeah. And so what I learnt there, and I learnt this real time because I was working with different cultures. So Australians, guys from Brazil, me as a Kiwi, we had around about the same cadence. I remember there was a really funny moment. We did this sort of kind of role play computer thing. We had to load up, and we had to push the button to load up all of our decisions, and we're competing against all the other teams. Wow. And there's a clock on the wall, and it's just gone through, and we've got 1 minute.
Yep.
We've got literally 1 minute, and we've got to push that button. And we haven't pushed the button because we're like, guys, we're all aligned. We're all aligned. And a guy from the Middle East just sort of said, "Hey guys, could we just take 5 minutes to discuss this?" And the Brazilian, the Aussie, and me, we just burst into hysterics, push the button, because that was his cadence.
Yeah.
And there's no right or wrong to cadence, but it's different.
Yes.
So what I learned about that is that even within cultures, people's pace is often a tension point.
Yes.
So my job as CEO is to get them all to kind of overlap, or to respect each other, to understand each other. And that was a really important lesson to me, because then I realized that was a tension point where how teams work together. And you'll say, someone's never on time, they're always late, they're always asking me for something and I'm not ready yet, right? It's those things. And so when you understand that, and then you start to get those to gel together. That's
a really powerful lesson. And also, I guess it's at different times of the day. So some people might be, like you say, early risers, and sharper in the morning.
Yeah.
They might be firing out the emails. Yeah. They're on top of what they need to do, but by the end of the day, you can't get a straight answer out of them.
That's
and
right.
then others, I know as well, from my experience before 40 Thieves, I worked as a user interface designer. I worked with a lot of developers, and those guys, they were happy to put in the hours in the middle of the night for you, but you couldn't get them before 10 a.m. And the CEO at the time of this company, he accepted that. Like, they almost had like a different start time, and it was just sort of accepted company wide, because he knew that they didn't clock off when it was 5 o'clock. They clocked off when they'd finished doing what they were doing, and not because they particularly cared about pleasing the CEO, but they just, once they were in the zone, their cadence had picked up.
And when you're aware of that, and you can get those things to actually, it might just be respect each other. It's literally just talking to people and saying, this is actually how we're going to do it, and this is the crossover period, or whatever it might be. That's when you start to get things to go. The second thing I learnt was about risk taking. So going from a CFO to a CEO. CFOs are sort of traditionally, they're kind of paid to be risk adverse, right?
Yes.
You're really you're the one who's basically watching and saying, hey, this is where we're going to hit a profile that we're not comfortable with, and it tends to be dollar type orientated.
Yes.
Whereas in a CEO is about growth and about ambition and where you're going to go. So they have a kind of a different perspective in terms of risk. They obviously have to function with each other because you don't want to make bad decisions.
Yeah.
But I had this really cool moment. So in this role playing that we were doing, so those 45 people were split up into 6 different teams, and we were competing each other over multiple days around really complex business stuff. And in fact, actually, Wharton was phenomenal. I mean, literally, you would go to the pub at night and they would send an anthropologist with you to watch your interactions with other people. Wow. I mean, if coming from New Zealand, this is like a whole different level for me. And it was just like, wow. And they were literally they'd come back and they'd give you feedback in terms of, how that might have impacted your life, kind of thing, And so I learnt lots of stuff, and it was unbelievably well resourced. But in this model, my team was in second place, and we came to the last day of rotation. We had to make the decisions, and I was the CFO, so I did a lot for that team, and I did a lot of the thinking in there in terms of how's this going to play out in the model and scenario modelling and things like that. And we got together on that last decision-making day of what are we going to do for our last build. And the team that was winning, they had just dominated right from the start. They'd been really, really, really strong. And but I'd kind of looked at what they'd done, and the night before I couldn't really sleep too much because I was just going,
you're analysing
logically
them.
they're going to, this is their next move. This is how they would protect their position.
Yes.
So when we got together as a team, I kind of said to my team, I said, listen, if this was the real world, I would say our shareholders are going to be absolutely stoked with our performance. We should take an honourable second place, and have very, very happy shareholders, and we should do this. But this isn't real world. I want to see what happens when you're really brave, right, and when you really just go for it. And they were like, "What do you want to do?" And I kind of told them what I wanted to do, and what I'd worked out is with this what looked like a relatively impenetrable environment, where they would likely be weak, and we could actually attack that unexpectedly.
Yes.
Because, we'll call it their fortress. They didn't need to defend their fortress. They'd rather keep those resources and put them over here. So I was like, okay, you go over there, but I'm going to take this from you. Yeah. So then the next day comes around, and, it's very American fashion. It's a kind of big presentation type thing. They're going to announce the winners. It's a slightly embarrassing moment for someone, because they got to the last 2 teams. It was us and the other team. And they basically went to hand the mic to the other team and said, hey, we'd like to know, how did you do that? And the CFO for that team grabs the mic and he starts talking about how it's went. And the presenter sort of said, hey, stop. We've got to, hey, just hold up for a second. The winner is actually Team Orange, which was our team. And
his face
I had this personally really empowering moment.
Yeah.
Because I was sitting at this end of the queue, and we were at the end of the line, and we're at the long line, and he handed the mic to the person at the other end, right, who was in my team, and he says, I want to know, how did you guys do this? How did you do it? What did you do? And he handed the mic to that person, and he just goes, I'm going to pass this mic to someone who can explain it. And the whole team, just one by one, they just passed the mic down to me. And it was just personally enormously empowering. So that's why I say I came back really confident, because I was little old Sean from New Zealand. What was I doing? I mean, the global marketing executive for Microsoft was there. It was just like, what am I doing here? And I told them, and then the presenter basically said, you did what we call in the US, you did, you swung for the fence. That's what we call it.
Okay.
And I had swung for, and so ever since then, I've basically, in most things that I do with my team, it's like the guys said, we're not swinging for the fence, put the bat down.
Okay.
Right? You ever swing for the fence, we put the bat down. Save your resources.
Yes.
Right? And so if I do NPD, or new product development, it's like, hey, if you don't see a home run, don't bother.
Don't bother with
Right.
it. Make sure you, and
Yeah.
I've got so many questions around this topic, but just quickly on the NPD before I forget it, do you, like, to make sure you're swinging for the fence, do you do a lot of testing? Do you make sure a lot of
No.
people have you done a lot of research? Are there a lot of insights, or is
it depends.
gut?
It depends what we're doing. There's mixed views on that. If I go back to when I was at Hubbard's, Dick Hubbard would never pay for research.
Okay.
Because he kind of had a Henry Ford type of approach,
Yes.
right? You know, if I asked them what they'd wanted, they would have said more horses or faster horses or whatever it was. And a lot of times I've done research, you know, I'd say he's probably right.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is. You become instinctive after. I mean, I've been in the muesli game, should I say? I've been in the muesli granola game for 20 years,
Yes.
right? So it becomes instinctive, but there's big macro trends around
Yes.
the world in terms of like what's going to work. So there's already data points that sort of say that this is likely, but how do you deliver it in a non-compromised? In food, you know, the biggest non-compromise is, does it taste good?
Yes.
I mean, and it's really overlooked. Like people go, oh, nutritionally it's fantastic. Well, if it tastes like cardboard, no one's going to eat it. So
That's
that
right.
there's no point. All right. So, I think, but NPD swinging for the fence, like really important. The global success rate for NPD is 4%.
Okay.
Right, which
That's
is
very,
staggeringly
very low.
low.
That,
right?
that does,
1 in 25 products last 12 months.
That honestly, that's kind of like in some ways empowering, because
Yeah.
we also push out a lot of NPD,
Yeah.
and sometimes you really love the products and you think you've figured out what's going to work, but it doesn't.
Yeah, and
so,
then Brent talked about it before. You know, fail fast.
Yeah.
Right? Like so, when you see it's not going to work, you got to
got to cut your
lick
losses
wounds
early.
and just
Yeah,
get on with it.
yeah,
Right?
not just keep pushing money into it.
But once you realise that that's actually the success rate, and you know the investment cost of
Yeah.
NPD can be quite staggering. So you've got to, and all I did with my team is I basically said, guys, we're just going to have some really honest conversations up front. If we don't like something, if we don't feel right about it,
Yeah.
because I know that over the years I've looked at a product that someone else has been really keen on, and I've kind of hoped it would be successful,
Yes,
but I've not
yes.
felt that it would be,
Yeah.
or others where I felt that it was going to fail for this reasons, but I kept my mouth shut. I don't want that from anyone.
No.
Anyone who's got doubts, you call it, let's discuss it.
Yeah.
We just put it for a much tougher filter. Now,
Yes.
you were saying research. Well, I kind of was researching, but I was researching within a close group of people who, you know, had some inside knowledge as to how things might play out.
Yeah.
So that's actually proven to be pretty successful.
Yeah. So you follow your gut, and I really like that about the honest conversations, because you're right. There's sometimes you have this little feeling about something, but you don't want it to be there, so you just push it away. But
Yeah.
if you're honest with yourself and you let your team be honest with you about what they think works and doesn't, then you could save yourself, you know, a lot of money down the track.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. I want to go back to you in the queue, and how the microphone got passed down to you.
Yeah.
What did you say? Do you remember?
I just it was pretty tactical, if you want to put it that way. I just told them what we did.
Yeah.
I basically said, look, this is a scenario that I could see, that it was probable that competition was going to do this, and so rather than laying up and holding on to reserves and sort of defending
Yes.
the patch, even though it was like the last cycle and we were all going to tally up whose shareholders are the happiest, we basically attacked these two areas. The origins of it was some strategy stuff that I'd participated in early on in my career when I was at DB Breweries. And they did some really smart strategists from Heineken came over, and they kind of dissected the whole country up into like, it was kind of not geographical, socio-demographic, and it was like our fortress, their fortress, battleground.
Yeah.
And the concept was, I don't think anyone might be saying this is like 20-something or other years later, was that you minimised your resources to defend your fortress, but you created an impression that you were stronger than necessarily what you were investing.
Okay.
You participated in guerrilla warfare in a competitor's fortress.
I see.
And to be annoying so that they would over-invest to defend that fortress. And then you put all your real resources you put into the battleground, and you won the battlegrounds. Right? And so it was that mentality which basically said these guys are likely to leave their fortresses, if you want to put it like that, these fortresses undefended.
Yes.
Or not adequately defended.
So you almost go into the competitors' space. You make them feel like, you know, you're playing the same game, so that they get busy doing it, but then in the meanwhile, behind the scenes, you're creating something much bigger and much better.
And it kind of it's sort of, I mean, in real life, it depends. I mean, in real life, I don't mind competition. I like competition.
Yeah.
I mean, competition causes you to be better.
Yeah.
So, there's some competitors you might not like, and there's others that you tend to respect. I'd say I probably respect 99% of competition I've ever come up against, because, they cause you to have to think, and I think that's really positive. Yeah. I think that's actually, why would you want to destroy, if you want to say, why would you want to destroy something that's actually causing you to be better?
That's such a good
tend
point.
to not kind of look at competition so much as I must beat them.
Yes.
It's how do I hold my relevance?
Yes.
And it's probably a relevance of I'm larger than,
yes.
but
yes.
how do I hold my relevance to what their offer is? Yeah.
Yeah, so much amazing stuff. I want to take notes and go see what we can, how we can use this for 40 Thieves. I want to know about a risk that you took that didn't work. I feel like many times you're quite calculating, you have actually made it work. Which are there risks that have actually shaped either your career or something else that didn't go well?
Didn't work. This is a tough one, right? And I'll tell you why fundamentally it's a tough one for me. Is because I believe you win or you learn.
Okay.
Right? I don't believe in failure. Now, obviously, I use the word failure.
Yes.
Because I acknowledge it.
Yeah.
Because if you don't fail, you're not trying hard enough. You have to fail. Right? You learn your greatest lessons in failure. Mm-hmm. Okay, those who are truly successful in life have probably failed 99 times before that one time that they were successful, but they learnt from it.
Yes.
And so when you sort of ask that, it's hard for me to look back because my brain instinctively goes, oh, I learned a great lesson there. And so I don't. I can tell you where I have failed.
Yes.
It's where I've not followed my own rules.
Wow.
Where I've launched products and I've hoped.
Yeah.
And afterward, and I wanted to look smart.
Yes.
And I told my team this was great, but I had a doubt.
Yes.
And I convinced my team that I was right.
Yes.
And I probably overtalked them.
Ego.
And I didn't. Yes.
So
and
ego is
and I didn't allow them the opportunity to tell me that it was probably wrong.
I see.
And I started to believe what I was saying.
Okay.
Right?
Yep.
And then I looked back and I said, you always knew that was...
Yeah.
There was,
deep down, there's this little feeling.
You just wanted it to be.
I see.
Because you wanted to be the first person who's done it.
I see.
I'm not going to go into the detail
No,
of the
you don't
product
need
'cause it's
to.
almost a bit embarrassing.
I feel like everyone can imagine their own version of it.
You want to be the person who did that.
Yes.
And it was ego. Okay. And it was ego that stopped me following my rules. And when I went back and said, man, you would have been a lot better off just to follow those basic rules of... Is this? I still have there's still the CFO in me a little bit, so I do worry that I'm still a bit risk adverse, and so that's why sometimes I push things a little bit. But when I look back, it's that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. For anyone who talks to me and anyone who works for me, they'd be so confused because I'd say, it's really great that you're working with me because I've got such a high success rate. We never fail. and then I'll be saying, guys, and then we'll have a failure. And I say, guys, it's so great to fail. This is where we're going to learn the most. And they'll be like, wait a minute, dude, you just said you never fail.
Yeah. And I guess if you think about it, you don't fail because if every failure is learning, then it's...
but I just think people in a very literal sense should be like, this guy's just full of it, right? There's failure all over the place. But
CEOs, though, they're always a little bit delusional. That's what I'm sure the general public are like,
100%.
that didn't make sense in my brain, but you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I find it fascinating. Being the CEO, because Kiwis, we're very humble people, right? So you kind of want to talk down, but you need to talk a good game because people want to follow someone who knows what they're talking about, who is confident.
Absolutely.
And so it actually goes against the grain, I think, for a lot of Kiwis because that's not our nature. We're not taught to be like that.
You're right.
So I kind of call it, you got to get a little bit of American in you, right? Because if you interview Americans, they're going to have no problem telling you how wonderful they are.
I'm sensing a change even in New Zealand that, especially with LinkedIn,
the world's getting
people
smaller.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
we're sort of learning, we're leaning into American values perhaps. And
to be honest, there can be a comfort in being brash too, because to us it's like we have to expend so much energy in working out how to be polite but get the message across, and when you don't feel that you have to do that anymore, it's just like, well, that just got easier. I'll just tell you I'm great and here's why.
No, that's so true. You manage, obviously, we've talked about Smartfoods, we talked about Hubbard's before that. There's Tom and Luke as well.
Yeah.
So these are all very healthy food businesses that are creating food, to power you in the morning or get you through. I know Tom and Luke, I have those chocolate bliss balls daily as a little 3 p.m. kind of pick me up. How do you feel, I'm combining your worlds now, how do you feel that now since you have started running, how does it change the way you look at a business or an industry that you've been in for so long?
I remember one day saying to Dick Hubbard, I remember saying, look, I know I shouldn't, I think we were having to restructure, people going, I sort of, look, I know I should try to, this isn't personal. And he goes, it's just absolutely wrong way to think. It's got to be personal.
Yes.
If you make it personal, you'll care more, you'll work harder to get the right decision. And it was through that then I realised, really, our jobs are what we do. For some people, it's what we do so that we can earn money, so we can do the things that we enjoy.
Yes.
But they're interrelated. If you're lucky enough and you do a job that you love, it's definitely interrelated, right? So there's absolutely a crossover. It's made me more aware of the nutritional needs of people.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm really careful to not try and go and say, well, just because my nutritional needs have changed and I've become maybe more health aware and I eat better and I understand the nutritional composition of food better, it doesn't mean that everybody's on that same pathway, right? And I think that's the secret about food. It's the hard thing, right? We have all these sort of standards and say this is good and this is bad. Really what's good and bad is the balance over a day.
Absolutely.
Right? Like you could eat a piece of chocolate cake at midday, end of the day, and probably no one would be better. And if you ate it for breakfast, let's say that's a terrible start to the day. And it's fair enough, right? But really it's what did you eat over a whole day kind of thing or over a couple of days. That's probably what's really it's gonna count. So it's made me more aware. I mean, it certainly helped me. I mean, the running and the weight loss really helped me because I was doing the sales role at Hubbard's, and then I went, and then COVID happened, and I remember I walked into a category manager's office, and we'd launched the low carb products, the keto products, and I couldn't believe how they took off. So I went on it like a method actor. And the running, and then I lost 20 kg. So I walked into category manager's office and said, "What the hell are you doing?" I just I've been doing this, baby. It's all this.
That's so good. I bet they took it too.
Yeah, they did. They did.
So good.
It was a racing success, and but. There was definitely
it aided you in some of your
but
I
don't think people who are like CEOs or like yourself who you can't really separate the two.
No.
You would never want one to be a burden over the other.
That's
but
right.
they've got to like my brain doesn't switch off from a work point of view. It doesn't. I don't allow it to distract me from what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's just that like I will go to a cafe and I will order something off the menu because I believe that some of the ingredients that are used in there are really fascinating and I would like to experience them to see how I might use them. It wasn't the thing that I actually necessarily felt like eating that day, but my professional brain is just going, yeah, but there's an experience to be had here that I can learn from. So, it's like that. It didn't stop me from sitting out in the cafe and with my family, but I just made a slightly different decision.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So you're kind of NPDing. You're looking for NPD even in your personal time.
Yeah. Because inspiration will come from anywhere.
Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, I recently went to the UK for a week. It was very exciting.
Yeah.
And I went obviously to, trying to enter the market there with 40 Thieves. But at the same time, I opened up my eyes as to what was available there. And it's fascinating to see stuff that is starting to take off here.
Yeah.
But it's massive over there, And so I can see how, you do. You always have to have your eyes open. Obviously, FMCG it's a slower game. What's your favourite part of managing an FMCG brand?
I don't really want to sound corny because people will go, rubbish. That's not it. As a CEO, I see myself as the conductor of an orchestra. Yeah. Right. And if I'm threatening my staff, it'll sound like this. I'm the conductor of the orchestra. I can play any instrument here, but it would be a bad day if I picked one up. It's just a nice way of saying do your job. But in reality, what that means is each of those key players in my team and their teams, I want them to be able to be the best that they can be.
Yes.
And I want to bring that harmony together so that we are the best that we can be.
Yes.
And when we hit that home run, and I look across the room and I see we launched a SKU and it's gone to $1.5 million in its first year, which is like phenomenal in breakfast or something like that. And I see the ops manager who's not a salesperson,
Yes.
or I see the innovation person who's not sales, but he built that product,
Yes.
right? Collaboratively, built
Yes,
that product. And I see these beaming smiles.
Yeah.
And I just go, that's a beautiful moment. You know, it's just, that's
So
that's
good.
cool. You know?
Yeah.
And I love that. I just
Yes.
love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I love launching product and seeing them being really, really successful because there's a validation there,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I'm in the 4%. Yay. you know?
Yeah. No, you're right. I guess you put so much into it, and every individual puts their little bit into it.
Yeah.
And then, I really like that orchestra analogy. Once it all comes together, it's a beautiful harmony.
Yeah.
I think I need to write a book with Sean Kelly isms, like all these little notes. Okay. Well, I want to go back to running again.
Yeah.
Two things. One.
Yeah.
Can you describe a moment where you have, in your running journey, that you're most proud of, like that you can imagine if you
Yeah.
were to close your eyes? And then following that, how do you come down from that high? So you've hit your personal best.
Moment I'm most proud of. I actually get a little bit emotional when I think about it.
You're allowed to get emotional in here.
Yeah, I gotta. So I went to Boston Marathon.
Yes.
Boston Marathon was really tough. It was going to be my first sub-3 attempt. And it was really tough because my dad had died in October, and we knew he was going to die, and he'd suffered for months, and I'd been on that journey with him, and he'd said to me, "Oh, I get a bit worked up."
I'm sorry. I'm sorry
No,
for
it's
your
fine.
loss.
No, I don't mind. No,
Yeah.
I don't mind. I mean,
Yeah.
these are real feelings. And he said to me, "I won't be there."
Oh,
I remember picking my bib up.
Yeah.
And I burst into tears.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God.
Just
I
wanted to
don't,
tell
you know,
him.
I don't do this, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. People are going to look at me. What's a weirdo? He's like picked his bib up and he's burst into tears.
But it meant,
And it was just like,
it meant more for
I
you.
wish Dad
It
was
meant-
here to see this,
yeah.
you know. And, but he unknowingly, he had loaded me up with all this emotion, and I blame him. Because, you know, the most important night sleep before a marathon is 2
Yes.
nights out. And I slept for 2 hours. I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was my dad. And I was like, it's okay. All right, hey, you didn't get that. The night before, I'll sleep. I got 2 hours sleep. So for those 2 days before, I'd slept for 4 hours. I got on the start line, and you know, like when you're really tired, you physically hurt.
Yeah.
I was literally going to run the most important marathon of my life, and I was in agony. I was like physically sore.
Yeah.
And I ran it in a really, really disciplined way. The normal GPS type thing, the marathon was running longer. I didn't kind of spot it. It was real amateur hour type stuff. And I ran it in 3 hours, 53, I think. 53 seconds, 3 hours. So 53 seconds over 3 hours.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's amazing. People after me was like, oh, you must be so good. I didn't even think about it.
No.
You know, when I crossed that finish line, I just thought, God, Dad would be proud. That's all I thought.
Yeah.
Anyway, I knew I could run that sub-3. So I got in touch with my coach and I said, listen, I want to run Wellington Marathon. I don't know, like 8-10 weeks or something. I went and ran Wellington Marathon. And this is my proudest moment. Because I came from that, I recognised that I could do more. I ran the Wellington Marathon. Now, the beauty of the Wellington Marathon was it was 2 laps out, and the 1 lap was the half marathon. My son was running in the half marathon.
Yes.
And because they started 1.5 hours apart, so it kind of meant that by the time I had gone and done my second loop, as I was heading up, my son would probably run past me and I would see him. So that was like going to be quite cool. And I was definitely going for a sub-3 hour attempt here. So I'm running it. My son comes past. He's like doing like he's hitting sort of about a 1:15 half marathon pace, and he's sitting in a group.
Speedy.
And he's go past and we sort of exchange pleasantries and stuff. He goes out. He's got the turn point. I'm running out. By now I've sort of split off. I'm actually moving pretty quick, and as he's coming down, he sort of checks. Like, we see each other across the course, and he goes, "You're good," and I'm like, thumbs up. Yeah, I'm all good. I run, do the turn. I start coming back, and as I'm coming back, I see him running towards me.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
And he comes to me and he says, I wasn't really feeling it today. I just thought I might pace you in for your sub-3. And it's like 9K to go.
Yeah.
And my brain was like, oh my God, I'm going to run sub 3 today.
Yeah.
I'm not failing.
No, my son's dropped out of his marathon. He's going to join me for mine.
Yeah, and it was just, that's the kind of son I've gone.
That is so incredible. I mean,
so I don't know. I ran sub 3.
Yeah.
I ran sub 3.
Woo-hoo!
But
I feel like you deserve an applause.
But that's it's not how I think of it. I don't think of it's so cool, right? I ran my first sub 3.
Yeah.
And I don't think of when I think of that run, I don't think of my first sub. I have to remind myself, that's how you ran your first sub. You've been chasing this for your life, right?
Yes.
And you ran it. I don't think that. I think about my son.
Yeah.
And I remember, running back with him, and I just remember this. Oh my God, I'm gonna do it. It wasn't even a question. It was like, there's no way I'm failing with him beside me.
Yeah.
So hands down, easily. I mean, there's so many when running. There's so many moments that you can be proud.
Yeah.
You asked about PBs. I think PBs. Yeah, it's tough, right? I ran a PB a few weeks ago. I hadn't run a PB in 2 years.
Wow. So you can pull one out unexpectedly.
Yeah, and just conditions was sort of perfect, and it was like that was really neat. I don't know, because I just kind of figured that one day what will happen is I'll look back and I'll say that run that I did 3 years ago, that was my PB.
Yes.
Because I'm kind of pursuing being the best that I can be. I am mindful of them.
Yeah.
And I am trying to run faster.
Okay.
Right. So but I'm also, Father Time is against me. And so it's just like, hey, at some point it's just not going to happen. But I'm trying to run the fastest I can run. But I'm quite keen to head off into sort of the ultra distance. I'm not really sure that's a time thing.
Yes.
That's more
distance and experience.
This crazy person just, ran 100 miles. And depending on the course and all of this, I'm not sure time really matters.
Exactly,
So I think by, once I sort of do a bit more of that, I'll probably look back and I'll just go, okay, I've run my fastest. My fastest times. But I think people should pursue it.
Yeah.
But I think it's also what is your personal best? Because there's other things that are going on in life, right?
Yes.
It could just be that you're out doing it. It could just be that you ran more Ks this week than what you did the same time last year or something like that. I mean, there's so many amazing people who their achievements aren't time based. It's not how fast they ran.
Yeah.
Lots of personal stories.
True.
I'm going through hardship type stuff, and I keep running. I mean, I know people who are suffering from cancer, and they just keep running every day, and you just go, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's you've definitely smashed a PB every day.
Cool. And again, you asked me how fast they go. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I just know that they ran.
What would you say to somebody who is listening and they've been thinking about it, but it just doesn't feel like they're too scared?
But the thing I love about Run Every Day is you can't hide from it. You either did it or you didn't do it. Forming habits takes about 3 weeks. So I think if you wanted to do something and you did it every day, and we're not crazy like, if it's like a gym instructor say, please do not go and do legs day every day, right? Yeah. I'm not meaning that, but if you did something every day and don't overdo it. Like, set yourself up for success. I'm actually going to do small bits now so that I can celebrate the fact that I'm doing more later. Don't try and rush to get to there. There's no rush on turning your life into something cool, right? It's a building thing. And so I just say, just start, don't stop.
Yeah, that's it. Start and don't stop.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Sean, for coming in. That was super inspiring. I've got a final little question for you. Are you smooth or crunchy peanut butter?
Crunchy.
Crunchy? All right, there you go. I'll see you out there.
Awesome.
Smashing PBs. Thanks for listening to this episode of Smashing PBs, brought to you by 40 Thieves, New Zealand's best peanut butter for fueling every day and epic adventures. If this episode inspired you, please like, subscribe and share with like-minded legends. Now go grab a jar of 40 Thieves from your local supermarket and start smashing PBs.